All right, I think we'll get started, Tammy, and as people join, they'll catch on. So hi, everybody that's here. I am Jackie Gagliardo. I'm the Director of Counseling at the high school. I'm joined with one of our counselors, Ms. Cortez James, and our presenter. If you were in attendance at our financial aid night on October 15th, we have Tammy with us again from Seton Hall University's financial aid office. And she is here to present really a run through of the FAFSA application line by line and how to fill it out. Just so you know, we are being recorded tonight, so everybody on their best behavior. But what's important to know is this is going to be available to you should you want to watch it over and over and over again or reference it, I think, which is helpful with a topic as sometimes complex as the FAFSA. Remember, this is also a graduation requirement for the class of 2026 to fill out the FAFSA or a waiver. So I think it's really important. And I thank Ms. Cortez James for setting this night up because most of our families will complete a FAFSA, and it's nice to have somebody facilitate some of the nitty gritty of it. Anything you want to say, Ms. Cortez James? Sarah?
No, I think that last year, like, the feedback that we got from this was super helpful for families, just being able to see what the application actually looks like. Even if you've had a child that, went off to college 4 years ago, the application has drastically changed over the last few years. And these changes are new to us as well as counselors, and it's not the one that we're used to seeing. So these are definitely helpful for us, to answer your guys' questions with an expert, because we are not experts right now at the school.
Great point. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Tammy, just so our audience knows we might go off camera for some time, but we are here. So we'll be with you throughout the entirety of the presentation. But yes, I will turn it over to Tammy now. Take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Jackie and Sarah. Welcome everybody again. Just so you'll know, the goal here, again, is to run through the FAFSA. What I'm hoping is that you don't try to line by line fill out the FAFSA during this presentation. It's going to be more helpful to just sort of look at what's happening, take it in, take some notes, and again, you'll be able to rerun this as much as you need to forward to the part that you need to see and reference again. But trying to do it line by line while I'm going through may not be as helpful. Just as it's a little recommendation, but feel free to do what works for you. So I'll go ahead and get started. There are a lot of slides.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, I do this a lot. No problem. In terms of questions, so we do have an open chat available. I'm not sure because there's a lot to get through. I'm not sure how much time we'll have for questions at the end. If throughout I feel there's something we can bring up, then I might. But is it possible for us, if there's any questions after the presentation, for those to get answered and to our families if we need to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great.
Just shoot them my way and I'll get right back to you.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
No problem. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. If I advance through a slide a little quickly, don't worry. Again, this will be recorded. You can go back and take a look. And I believe I'm okay to release this information, also the PDF of it. So if that's okay, I'll double check with HISA. You'll also have the PDF to review as well. So I'm going to go off camera right now just because I can't advance in here. I'm going to just need to look at something different. So I'm still here. You'll hear me. Here we go. So let's get started. So the FAFSA application and FSA ID process. The main website to access all of this information, as we reviewed at the presentation we had in person at your school, is studentaid.gov. So all things federal aid, including the FAFSA, for this coming year and previous years going forward. Again, you'll have to complete the application annually. So you will each year go out to studentaid.gov for a history of all of the information you've done here previously and what you'll begin doing now. So just familiarize yourself with this site, because this is where all of your things, federal aid, will be housed now and in the future. So studentaid.gov, you will be clicking here on the Start New Form for the 26-27 application. I'm pointing that out too because there are another live application for 25-26 available. So you do want to make sure that you're selecting the right form. The 26-27 is the one you want to select. All right, so you'll also then have to create an account in order to access the application. The account is basically the equivalent to what you'll see termed as your FSA ID. So that is the account you'll be creating. An account is required for both you and your student. You'll go through which parent is required or parents are required to create an account. And then, of course, your student definitely will need their own account. If you have an account previously created for another student, you do not have to create a new account. You can use the same account to complete your FAFSA for this current student. So when creating the FSA ID or your account, you'll just be providing some biographical information. Here, we're noting that your Social Security number is primary. Those students completing a FAFSA must have a Social Security number in order to complete the FAFSA. The parent does not have to have a Social Security number to complete the FAFSA, and we'll talk about that a little bit further, but the Social Security number of the student is required in order to proceed with creating an account. So here, as I just mentioned, if you do not have a Social Security number and you are a contributor other than the student, you would be selecting this box here that you don't have a Social Security number. And then you would be given this warning here that you're about to create an account without the Social Security number. If that is correct, then you'll be prompted to provide some other identifying information to create the account. The email address is required for any account being created. It is how they isolate your account from other account holders, including the student. So you and your student should use separate email addresses. If you even attempt to use the same email address as your student, if they've already created an account, it would, let you know that you can't do that. That information already exists in their system. But just as a heads up, you do want to use your own email address. The mailing address is required for those entering information without a Social Security number. Without a Social Security number or a mailing address, the account cannot be created. So you do need, if you're not submitting a Social Security number, at least a valid mailing address. This is basically for communication with you. So then you would be selecting your primary communication preference. The recommended source is through email versus postal mail. As we know, email would be more efficient, quicker, smoother. So email should be the preferred selection here. As you're creating the account, as with other accounts we're familiar with creating, they ask challenge questions. If you think you might forget your challenge question answers, jot them down someplace where you can find them, because this will be required if you're trying to retrieve your account username and or password. As you're going through, you'll confirm and verify that the information you have created your account with looks good before you proceed with sealing the deal on your account. Review it carefully. If you are, miss one number on your date of birth, etc., you won't be able to get back into your account, and you would then have to contact FSA for any edits at that point. So make sure you verify. There is a two-step verification process that you should go through. You'll verify both your email and phone number usually. There is an optional app option to use as an authentication method, but it is optional. So primarily you're using your email and phone to receive this second two-factor authentication. Again, the app isn't required, but it is serves as an option. This is the last step for those with a valid social security number. You'll make note of this backup code just in case you need it to access the information. So, wherever else you're keeping your information for this process, you want to maybe jot down this backup code just as a backup in order to access that information again. Those here in front of us is the knowledge-based identity questions. If you're verifying instantly, you might need to answer some of these questions so they know from your basically credit history, credit report, that you're answering this information correctly. You've probably been through this on other forms and applications. If none of them apply, you make sure you select none of the above. That is a correct answer. So just make sure you're reading each of these correctly if you have to go through this type of identification. The email sent that the account was created and the person should contact the FSA happens if you are not verified and if these knowledge-based questions don't jive. So again, make sure that you are properly reading carefully through those knowledge-based questions before you answer and hit submit on that. So some required documents, ID verification for individuals without social security numbers. You have maybe just a couple extra steps to take in order to verify your identity. So just be prepared with any additional documentation that may be required to seal the deal on them verifying your account. And of course, this is all done in the spirit of making sure that who you say you are, you really are. We do live in an age of fraud, and you just want to make sure that that information provided is verified to be who you are. It's a real thing. We see it, unfortunately, and we do want to make sure that the aid that you're due is what actually gets to your student. So just make it, again, sure if anything additional is required, that's provided. So for the dependent student process, again, at studentaid.gov, we're at that start the new 26-27 FAFSA. You're using those credentials you created to log in here. Just be careful. You can also choose to show the password if that helps when you're logging in. And once you're successfully logged in, you'll see your welcome page with the student and or parent first name. You want to carefully select student or parent. The recommendation is that your student begin the FAFSA form. So you're selecting student here. After logging in, the parent, if you're going next at that point, would select parent. But basically, I am suggesting that at the start of the process, the student be the person who begins the application process. So once you're in the form, you selected parent or student. There's an onboarding few screens that they have you go through to help you understand what you're about to experience. So some information detailing what the FAFSA is, detailing again who is considered a contributor when it comes to the parent, which parent or parents to select, and then just some more information about what to expect. And if you need anything ahead of time, so that you can make the process as smooth as possible, what else to have handy while you're completing the application. They estimate that the application takes no more than 30 minutes, and I can attest to that. In some cases, it's less than that. So it really isn't too hard on your time, impending on your time. Additionally, okay, so then you get here. After submitting the form, they give you some information on what to expect, approximate days for processing, and so forth. And again, if you have to get back into the FAFSA, you can make those corrections once the FAFSA is processed. Once you submit the form, though, say you just hit submit and you say, oh my goodness, I did mean to add that additional school. Don't worry, you won't be able to get back in right away. But within that few days after processing, you can go back in and make that update or correction to the FAFSA to add that additional school. Submit the form again, and it will go back out. So the student identification process, it lists all of the information that you use to create your account. So everything should be made to just making sure that what you submitted is accurate. If you see anything that's not accurate, you probably want to stop before you continue here and either contact FSA or see if you can make updates to your FSA ID. And at that point, if you're already logged in here, you are likely not going to be able to make those updates to your FSA ID. So that original creation of that account is really important to make sure it's accurate. Once you're at this point, they're assuming you are who this information is listed here is saying you are. So if it looks wrong, if there's something not correct, you really do want to halt here and not proceed. Reach out to Federal Student Aid and have them assist with any updating. But if everything looks good, you're advancing. You're identifying that information, confirming your state of legal residence to be New Jersey, and then the as of date in most cases is your date of birth, your month and year of birth. That's the inception, unless you are not an original New Jersey resident and you need to include the as of date here. Here, you are providing consent to the federal government that they are able to access the IRS and any information that office holds about your tax information for the year in question, which is the 2024 tax year. Students, don't worry if you have not completed a tax return. That information will be determined once the form goes through this IRS check through this process. Similarly with the parent, if you have not completed a 2024 tax return, you have no need to complete a 2024 tax return. That's okay too. The process goes through this check to make sure of that in particular. So proceeding on, it will let you know if this access was successful. And if so, basically, I'll go back a second. What the success check mark says is that you will not, going through the FAFSA, usually, in most cases, this success checkbox means that you will not see your financial information in the FAFSA application going forward until you get to the end of the application. It is no longer displayed in the application upon submitting it. This success checkbox is basically saying we have retrieved the information and there is no need for you to provide this information manually. So the assumption is that you are your information is accurate with or is as is at the IRS, and there's no need for you to provide that information by way of entering it in the application. So this is a good checkbox and really lessens the time that you'll need to spend within the application. The checkbox here, I will say, should be a caution on the student side. If there are special circumstances that the student would like the financial aid office to be aware of, you would want to update that information here, make that checkbox known. But otherwise, no need to ponder here. You would just continue into the application. The student marital status is usually single. If the student is married, of course, you can enter that here, but then we would be talking a difference in dependency status. If your student is married, they are no longer considered a dependent student, but this is really rare. And the common answer here is single. The college career plan here. Most students here, again, outside, coming right out of high school, would be selecting this first option, the first year freshman. Believe it or not, this is one of those questions that sometimes gives some trouble. So we just want to point out here, when you begin your schooling, you are considered to be entering as a freshman and not having achieved your first bachelor's degree. So the second question here would be an answer of no. Any personal circumstances, you kind of go through the list here. Most students would be answering none of these apply, but in some instances you will have an answer of yes. But please, if you do have any of these circumstances or similar to these circumstances, please read each of these carefully. And if the answer is no, but there's still issues with how you can proceed, that is something you want to have the conversation with eventually with someone in your aid office. In most cases here, though, the answer will be none of these apply, and you would proceed with the student section. Separate on this special circumstance list is a question about the student's homelessness status. If they have been unaccompanied or feel that they may be at risk of being homeless, if there is some documentation, McKinney-Vento in particular status that the student has, this might be where they would need to update that information here. Any unusual circumstances, again, would be noted here if that's the case. If not, the answer would be no, and you're continuing through the application. Again, one more effort here to pinpoint any students that might have a special circumstance that does not allow them to access their parent information. They have the opportunity here to just have some limited restrictions, if you will, on what the FAFSA might be able to offer, and in some limited access. If you're unable to provide parental information and the circumstances are as such, you may need to agree to only receive the unsubsidized loan as a result of certain circumstances, basically parents being unwilling to provide information. This is, again, very rare. Most students do not face this issue. Most parents are absolutely willing to provide their information. And then in this case, that answer would be no. Student demographics. You would proceed into the screen. This is just the intro to what's next here. Your demographics of some questions here that will become optional for you to answer. They run through this question, a lot of these here. What you'll find here is that a lot of this is really sort of just, I guess, if you will, maybe in the survey category, but it's all optional. You could choose to answer or choose not to answer a lot of this information. Again, it is optional, but if you'd like to answer, you want to go through and, try to be as accurate as possible. What's next here is not optional. The student citizenship status. To be eligible to complete a FAFSA, the student would have to answer the first two options, either U.S. citizen or national, or eligible non-citizen. The third option here, neither U.S. citizen nor eligible non-citizen, would mean that the student could not proceed with completing a FAFSA. And it would really be rare that you would even get this far into the application if you're selecting this. That would also mean that you have a social security number as a student. And those students who have been given a social security number might also have an alternate citizenship status that might need some further exploration in the aid office. We may be able to help the student from this point. If there are any questions about citizenship status, the student should come to the aid office. We will be able to assist and make sure that the student answers this question correctly if they have any questions about their status. Also, if you have an alien number and your status isn't exactly eligible non-citizen, you don't have a green card yet in hand, but you have been given an A number, you may be able to still answer eligible non-citizen, enter that A number, and have this immigration check happen behind the scenes to see what it comes back as when they check the immigration status. But again, if you have any questions about this, feel free to access the aid office. But if there is the absolute answer of neither U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, the state of New Jersey does, again, as we spoke of in your presentation, offer the option of the New Jersey alternative application that the student may be able to be reviewed for state aid only eligibility. Parent education status question, go through that, make sure you just answer the best way you can. Whether or not your parent was killed in the line of duty. This is a really specific question. So just make sure you're reading carefully and answering appropriately. I did have a couple of students who didn't necessarily answer this correctly, and answering this, it didn't quite apply. So if you have any scenario linked to this, you want to just make sure you're reading properly. This will be the first time I'm going to mention it, but next to each question is that circle with the I in the middle of the circle, which just indicates that there's some additional information by clicking on that to give you a further explanation about how you can properly answer the question. So if you have any reserve about how to respond on any of these questions, just make sure that you use that option of clicking on that circle with the I for information. High school completion status, you can check what applies here as well. High school diploma, if you're homeschooled or none of the above, whatever applies. High school information, please don't leave this blank. This is an issue if it is left blank. If you're unable to do the search and successfully find your high school, make sure you're entering the information manually, but by all means, don't leave it blank. It does cause issues down the road when we're processing federal student aid. You, again, here, confirm your high school if the search was successful, and that way this can populate on your FAFSA. Now we're entering the student finance portion. Tax return information is requested if you, again, weren't able to successfully verify with the IRS. This section would ask for all of that information from your tax return. Otherwise, it's really going to go straight to some other information that can't be found necessarily on your tax return. So we have here information about an IRA, any pension rollover. This question, the third question down, just as a caution, amount of college grant scholarships, AmeriCorps, etc. This might seem, even in the future, tempting to pull out any scholarship offerings, etc., that were received. That is not necessarily what this question is asking. Basically, if you have a scholarship that was taxable at any time, that was included on the tax return as being taxable, you paid taxes on the scholarship, that would be listed here. In most cases, this answer is 0. So don't, conflate the two and enter an amount here. That would be an error. So in most cases, this is 0. If you have a foreign income exclusion that's represented on the tax return, you will enter that here. Student assets are entered as of the day you're completing the application. So if you're just making an estimate of what you believe your cash saving and checking amount to be, that's perfectly fine. But try to be as close as possible. If this item is verified by any of the schools, they would be requesting documentation of the amounts of these assets as of the day you completed your application. So moving on to investments, any real estate would only include the home that you do not currently live in, not your primary residence. The only time you list the value of your primary residence is if it is a multifamily dwelling. So if your home has 2 levels, you live in one, you rent the other, you would be giving the value of the property based on the market value minus your outstanding mortgage, and then you divide that by 2 and list that here. Only, again, if you live in a multifamily dwelling. If you're in a single family house, you do not need to list the value of your property. And then again, if you have any business or investment farm values, you would enter that here only if you are employing more than 100 people. So if you have fewer than 100 employees, the value this year is not required to be reported. So here you're selecting the colleges and universities that you'd like to receive this information. You can list up to 20 schools. Once you select the schools that you like to receive the information, you'll go ahead and hit continue. And now that brings you to the end of close to the end of the student section. This point is where the student would be inviting the parent or parent contributors. So then if you have any question about who's considered a contributor, I'll reiterate this. We did talk about this at the presentation, but just a quick overview. The parent contributor, if you are married and you filed a joint tax return, then only one parent is required to have created an FSA ID and complete this section. That is because the tax information would come over for both parents. So only one parent would need to do so because it would pull in the joint tax return information. If you are married and you file separate tax returns, both parents would need to set up FSA IDs and both would be considered contributors and both would have to enter their data into the student's FAFSA. If you are divorced or separated and you live in separate households, then the parent who provided the most support, financial support for the student within the last 12 months would have to provide their information on the FAFSA and they would be considered the contributor. If you are unmarried and you are the 2 biological parents of the student living in the same household, again, both parents would be considered contributors and both parents would be entering their information into the application. So a little bit about your parents. They ask their marital status. The marital status is as of the day you're completing the application. So if they're married to each other, you answer yes here and you continue. You want to provide the email address of the parent who would parent or parents who would be contributing. The student receives a confirmation. At this point, the parent should look in their email address and their email account for the invitation that the student sent. Within that email will be a link that invites the parent into the student's application. You would use your login credentials to access the application and then proceed with the student's information. You're in the account. These green check boxes for the student page lets the student know that they've successfully gone through all of their sections of the FAFSA. This is the student review page. It tells you that the information was shared with, in this case, one contributor. You continue through. The student at this point should provide their signature, which is basically their FSA ID. You've logged in with that. You're submitting on your side by checking here where it says to sign. You, the student, agree to the terms outlined above. You sign and you hit submit. At that point, you have a pending submission, pending your parent contributor's information being added to the application. The student section complete here gives you just that summary of information, things you should know before you're continuing. And then, of course, looking for your parent to provide that information on their end. Students' parents' email. This view demonstrates a parent opening the FAFSA invitation from their email. So it's similar to this. The blue box here where it says accept invitation is hyperlinked. So you would click there and then it would take you again to the login page where you would enter this code provided in the email. So the red box code here, you would need that information. So before you leave the email, you might want to just go ahead and copy and be prepared to paste that information. Again, you see that here, your password, logging in, you provide that invitation code here. The parent accepts the invitation and you're entered into the application. You go through the same onboarding, understanding the information, what you're about to experience. Your section is approximately 30 minutes as well. A helpful video if you need it, but your student has already gone through this. It will be a similar process. So again, you as the parent, make sure that the information here is who you are, who it says you are before continuing. If all looks well, you're entering the application here by continuing. And you too, if your state of residence is New Jersey, or if it's not, you're going to indicate what that is and enter an as of date as well. You too will need to provide consent to the IRS to enter the data they find when they access their database into your application. When you do that, hopefully you are met with the success checkbox as well. That would mean that you too will also not see your financial information in the FAFSA form itself, but you'll know that it's being used in the end to calculate the overall eligibility. Entering the parent demographics. You enter your current marital status. That would be as of the day you're completing the application. What is your marital status? If it's married, you would again check that, and then it would be looking for. We'll keep going, but basically your marital status sort of dictates how the application proceeds. If it's single, it's looking for one parent information. If you're married, it's looking for both. And then if you're married again and you filed jointly, it's only needing your information separately. You would be prompted to provide that second parent's information. But moving forward, how am I going backwards? Here we go. So now we're in the finances section. All right. So the parents, if it applies, would provide a response here of none of the above apply. If either of these benefits do apply, please make sure you're checking it off accurately. This would be for the tax year of 22 or 23. So anytime within those 2 years, if any of these benefits applied, you would want to select the appropriate box. So the parent tax filing status, did you file a 2024 1040? And did or will the parent file a joint tax return? Again, this is going to determine how your FAFSA moves forward with requesting additional information. So in this case, we have yes, the parents filed, and yes, they filed a joint return. So we're only needing this one contributing parent to provide the rest of the information. The family size is estimated based on the information that they've accessed from the IRS. The family size is estimated from the number of exemptions noted on the tax return. So here, the assumption is 3 based on the information from the tax return. If that is different, you would use this empty box at the bottom of the screen to update that number if it needs to be higher in this case, because it's definitely going to be 3. You have the student, you have the mom and dad, or at least 2 parents. That's the minimum the household could be. It can go higher if, say, you did not include an exemption that currently exists. You just gave birth, let's say, or you just finished an adoption and you have another family member. That is where you would be able to increase that family size here, and make sure that it's properly represented. Number in college, the assumption again is 1 based on the information they have. If that's different now, you can make that change here. Parent tax filing status. Did or will the parent file a, it says 22, but we're talking 23 joint tax return. So you're going to indicate that as such here. Parent tax return information. The filing status, married filing jointly. Income earned from work is noted here because even though they're pulling information from the IRS, it's sort of assumed that the information is correct, or from the line 1 of the tax return, W-2 wages. But just as a verifying number here, this question might still come up. So just be prepared to provide any income earned from work exclusive from your adjusted gross income. Tax exempt interest, and it does give you your line items here if you need to go through your tax return and pull this information. Any education credit, and whether or not you completed certain schedules. This is all information required in order to help determine the student's eligibility. If you have filed a Schedule C, you're a sole proprietor business, you want to provide that information here. And again, the similar question of whether or not you've included a taxable scholarship on your tax return is a question on the parent side as well. Again, this will usually be no and zero because most scholarships are not taxable. And then if you have any foreign earned income exclusion from Schedule 1, you want to include that here. Your assets are also based on the day that you're completing the application, so try to be as accurate as possible. Child support received is in the asset section. While it is not an asset, the FAFSA and its revamping just didn't have a better place to put this. So the asset, the child support received is included in this asset section. So just if you need to provide a value here, just don't overlook it. It is in this section. So here you would invite the parent spouse into the form if required, if they need to provide that additional information. Continuing here, invite the spouse if necessary. Here's that parent review page. You do want to look for all of these green circle check boxes indicating that you have completed each section successfully. You're on your parent signature page. These are all good signs. You're checking this checkbox here. You agree to these terms outlined, basically that it's being submitted and being checked by certain government agencies for accuracy and so forth. And then you're hitting that sign and submit button. You too will have a pending submission until all of this information culminates in the student side of the application. So you're now at the FAFSA summary landing page. I'll just read this here. The student receives a FAFSA submission summary for their processed FAFSA form and any subsequent corrections that they submit. The FAFSA submission summary is broken into 4 tabs: eligibility overview, FAFSA form answers, school information, and next steps. At the top, the student will see information about when their form was received and processed. They also have the option to print their FAFSA submission summary to keep it for their records, just so we have all the information here. There's a lot of information when you're out here, so you just want to make sure that you're understanding what exists. Click on it, navigate through, just so you're familiarizing yourself with what information is out here and how to get back to it. The eligibility overview, once the application is submitted, will sort of give you an idea of what you can potentially receive, but you do need to also wait for this to fully process. And this again is not an actual award notice. These are just estimates, as it notes here: estimated financial aid, federal student aid. So just again, an estimate of what you can look to receive from on your actual award letters from your schools that you've been admitted to and are anticipating award notices from. An overview indicating upon submission of the application what your student aid index will be once it's fully processed and returned to you, and then submitted to the schools. This is, again, just a listing of all of the information you've provided. If you go through here and you say, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? I didn't mean to say that or enter that information. I need to go back and make a correction. Again, no worries. You can go back and make that correction once the application fully processes. It takes between 1 to 3 days to process. You can go back in, access the form with your credentials, and then go back in to make a correction, edit the application, navigate through to the section that you need to make the update, navigate all the way through to the end, sign again, and submit the application. Again, some of the answers, your school information, those schools that you listed, up to the 20 schools will be there. Some of your next steps. On the Next Steps tab, the student sees comments that pertain to their FAFSA form. Some comments may require the student to start a correction or send additional documentation to their school. Other comments may be informational and do not require any further action from the student. So just take some time to review here and just, again, become familiar with what information is out here. If you need to, again, go back and access any of this at any other time. Some additional helpful resources that you can access at any time. The college scorecard is also here for your view and peruse. NJ-FAMS. As I discussed in the presentations, I think it's already a couple weeks ago now, NJ-FAMS does not require you to submit an additional application. What they do ask is that you create a portal with them, an account with them, so that they can use this to communicate with you. So at njgrants.org, you can create an account under the NJ-FAMS system, the financial management system. This is what the login would show. And then where you see this red arrow, it says click here. That word here is hyperlinked. That would be where you would click to create the account. Once the account is created, you'll have access to the NJ-FAMS account, the financial aid management system, to view your to-do list, view any updates. If you add a school after you submit your FAFSA, you will have to come out to this NJ-FAMS account to add the school. Any subsequent updates to your FAFSA, HESA does not receive. So you do have to do that manually out on this section, on this page, logging back into your NJ-FAMS account. Awards and eligibility information can be found here. So you do want to, again, familiarize yourself with the NJ-FAMS account. And again, create the portal separately. Your to-do list, all incomplete documents and outstanding documents are listed here. Keep a close eye on this. As I mentioned in the presentation, deadlines are critical. You'll have on your to-do list any requested information along with the deadline. Adhere to that deadline. If it says it's due by, like it says here, October 1st, that is exactly what they mean. So please don't use October 1st as your deadline. Make it September 1st. Get everything in on time for their review. Award and eligibility information. Under that tab, you'll find some more helpful information on that NJ-FAMS account. There's some highlights here that you can review, any pending verification or any other information that would be applicable within your account. Under the award and eligibility tab, you'll see anything that's been offered to you per semester. So if you have questions about any assistance that you've been offered, say you receive your award notice and Kane in this instance has sent out your award information, but it does not include your tag eligibility. You could say, my NJ-FAMS account shows that I'm tag eligible, but I don't see it on my award notice. Can you please take a look at that? And Kane would be able to say, oh, yes, we do see that, and we'll be able to add it. Any filing deadlines and complete state record deadlines. Again, deadlines are crucial. We can't say it enough, so make sure you're understanding your deadline information. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. So I don't know if in the meanwhile we had some questions fall into the Q&A, but we can take those at this time.
We did, Tammy. We did have
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Okay, I can read them to you if that works.
Yes, perfect.
There's just a few. So just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, you can type them into the chat now. The first was the family didn't file a tax return for their son because he had earned less than $10,000 in a summer job. So would they be responsible for reporting that?
So you do want to report the wages earned, even if you did not file a tax return. And then be prepared if you are selected for verification to have documentation of those wages earned. But yes, regardless of whether or not you were required to file the tax return based on the amount of the earnings, you should report the amount of the earnings. Even if, say, you did, everyone's lawn over the summer and this, you earned $1,500, that should be included. You would be able to tell your school, I mowed lawns, I don't have a W-2, and they would have a form for you to complete. But whatever your earnings are, regardless of filing, they should be reported.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're able to see the chat, Tammy. So I mean, I'll read them to you if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Let me see. I can see it, but if you want to just verbalize it too, that might be helpful.
Sure. Yeah. So for the audience, the question's about a 529 plan. Okay. Is that reported through the student?
Oh, okay. So the 529 plan is going to the asset basically is reported based on how the 529 plan was established. So if it's established with the parent, so the parent took out the plan in their name for the student, that is the parent asset. If the someone other than the parent took out the 529 plan, that would become the student's asset. And I did have a parent the other evening at another FAFSA night indicate that she was reading something or was told something about this no longer needing to be provided, this information about the 529 plan, if it's in, say, established by an aunt or grandparent or uncle. And I did verify on the FAFSA application that is not correct. That would still need to be provided, but there are certain other accounts, UGMA, UTMA, or I can't remember the other acronym, but the UGMA sort of custodial accounts that are no longer required unless they are in the student name to be reported. So that in particular, yes, 529 plans and other than the parent name are still required to be reported. But again, the asset is based on how it was established.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I apologize if you did answer this, but will a student or a family get an email if more information is needed after submission of the FAFSA?
So no, you will not hear directly from the federal processor. If the school receives the FAFSA and requires some additional information or verification, you'll hear directly from the school. Similarly with HESA, if they select the application for verification, they will contact the student directly, but not from federal student aid. But if you submit your application and it wasn't able to be processed, you will be able to review the summary and any comments on the FAFSA page. Read those carefully. So say you forgot to sign the application, you didn't click that checkbox, it will let you know we're missing a signature. Please go back in, sign, and resubmit. So those types of things, yes. But anything more detailed, that's going to lie with your school.
With the institution.
With the institution.
You're saying?
Yes, not your high school. Yes, with the institutions. Yes.
And then this is unique question: is a timeshare considered a vacation home?
A timeshare, okay. Now I guess the root here, I won't hone in on timeshare, but what I will say is an asset is basically considered anything that can be sold, and then have a tangible value. So if you are able to sell your timeshare and come out with a tangible, liquid asset value, then it should be considered an asset. So I can't say timeshares, yes, in particular, but overall assets, that's kind of how you want to look at whether or not you're providing the value. But if you have any questions at all, again, please click on that circle with the little I, the information circle, and you will have some more details about what you should be providing in terms of assets, etc.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then another question is that you had mentioned owner-occupied homes need to divide into half under student asset. Is that correct?
Not under student asset, that would be the parent asset. But again, that's only if you live in a multi-family dwelling. So if you live in like a 2-family home or a 3-family home, again, you're only going to report the asset value of the portion in which you don't reside. So again, if it's a 2-family home, say it's a $500,000 value in the home, you still owe $300,000. So your net value would be the $200,000, but you only live in the one portion. That $200,000 would be divided by 2. So your reported asset value of the multifamily dwelling would be $100,000.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming up on, we're actually we're past 7:00 is what I should say.
Yeah.
So I don't see any other questions coming in, but Tammy, so I don't want to just give out your information to the public. So how do families proceed if they review this and they have more questions? What's your best advice?
Well, first of all, this is HESA's presentation. They are absolutely available. They welcome people calling in and asking questions. However, I won't, hold any bars here. Their hotline is hot, so you might be on hold for a little bit. But feel free to call the schools that you're applying to. Any aid office will be able to assist. But me in particular, I am the only Tammy Hussey at Seton Hall. You'll be able to find me. I can't hide. So if you really would like to reach out, that's not a problem. But certainly you can reach out to your school counselors directly as well. They can forward me the information and I'll definitely get back and be able to assist. So either way we'll get you that assistance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we often tell families we're not the experts, so to speak, in this arena. So we often will direct them to the institution that they're vying for or, having questions with. So I appreciate you echoing that too.
Yes. And also that's important what you just said, because while we all basically do the same thing, we might have our own little caveat with how we process. So if you really know that you're going to be attending Montclair State, it might be worth it to reach out to their office if you have a specific question, because another school might give you just a little bit of a different answer, different than, what Montclair is requiring.
That is true. Yes.
Yep.
Sarah, anything you want to add before we let everyone go?
No, I think this was super helpful. Thank you so much, Tammy, for spending the time with us.
You're welcome. Absolutely.
Yes, you're very clear and easy to follow. So I appreciate it. And again, this is recorded. So I will try to get this out to you all as soon as possible. Spread the word that this is going to be disseminated to families if they weren't able to join. And I hope this was helpful. And good luck to everybody.
Yes.